Hello and welcome. On today's video, I want to share with you two key insights that can help you to create transformation in your life, in your emotions, in your healing, in your relationships, and really ultimately your happiness as well. And it's this. It's that all of the time people may be overlooking the key thing that is pivotal to creating that change for healing. And to build on today's insight, I want to use my recent volunteer from episode number 241. Now, this woman, Suzette, just a beautiful, beautiful being, just positive, sweet, happy, loving. I mean, just really precious, just an amazing, amazing being. And if you listen to that episode 241, you'll recall she was really excited about playing pickleball, just absolutely in love with the game and so sweet towards her husband, loving her husband, sweet. And underneath on that episode, as we started to uncover, she had a feeling like she had been hurt. She had her feelings hurt because he wanted to play pickleball with other people and not necessarily with her. And he felt like it was not great for their relationship, which honestly also just shows how much he loves her as well. It's just really sweet and great communication. I mean, just a beautiful connection. And when we stop and think about it for a moment, if you think about this scenario where she is in love with him, even when I asked her how her relationship was with her husband, she said, oh, it's sweet, it's wonderful. So you can see there's all this love in her heart, in her relationship, and yet it hurt her feelings regarding pickleball. And it was something that she buried, and it was also something she wanted to just let it go. But there was this underlying feeling of hurt, and especially being somebody who's very competitive, et cetera, et cetera. So all of the things, like it felt like there was this sport that she loved that then her husband didn't want to play with her. And so self-criticism, I mean, it had all of these feelings connected to it. Now, if we stop and think about this awareness for a moment, there's a few things that you want to note. First and foremost, if you really think about it, a lot of times what people are doing when they're healing and working on healing is they're trying to just meditate or think positive and meditate. And this is what I had been doing also, is I did this for years and it wasn't working. Now, if you think about it for a moment, in her situation, she wants to heal so badly. And if you think about it, addressing specific hurts, wounds is so important. And so even in my life, I had been doing exactly that. I was meditating and thinking positive and doing all the things, the binaural beats, the phantom phase frequencies, the affirmations, the, you name it, theta state, delta state, like all of the things. And yet I was overlooking the key pieces that were pivotal for my life, for my healing. And so, a lot of times when I say to people that, you need to do more than just meditate or different than meditate, that's because that's where I see the healing results. And what I love about, looking at her situation is that she was already very positive, very sweet, very loved, very everything, just precious. It wasn't like, she was in a negative state, which in my situation, I mean, I was in a really bad state. I had been injured and then my entire life fell apart even more, and fear and stress. And I mean, I was in a bad spot in so many ways. But in her situation, happy, positive, sweet, loving, great. It just, so when you think about it for a moment, my point is, no matter where we are in our lives, whether it was my situation where I was in a really bad place or her situation where she's in a great place but has underlying wounding, that is the key. And the reason I emphasize this is I just can't tell you how often I see people who've been doing all of the things like I was. They're meditating and thinking positive and visualization and theta state or delta state and doing all of the things, and yet not healing. But when we really identify that specific thing and create a transformation, it can be pivotal in so many ways, not only for our healing, but also relationship, life, all of the things moving forward. So that's one insight that I want to invite you to look at from this. Now, the other thing is if you think about the second insight, and this is something that also just comes up a lot and is concerning, not just in her situation, I'm building beyond her situation, just using it as a segue. But what can happen a lot of times is this, is that we can take things to heart in the wrong way that then becomes painful. And this is what I mean. For example, if you think about, let's use a gentleman, for example, like let's say there's a man let's say there's a man who asks a woman out and she says no. And he says, okay. And he moves on, right? Okay, well, he'll ask somebody else out. No big deal. She said no. Not a big thing, and he'll find another woman. He feels confident. He feels secure in himself. No big deal. She's not interested. But then let's say there's a different man who asks a woman out and she says no. And he feels like, oh, that was huge rejection. That was just painful. Now, when you think about it for a moment, the same experience happens, but it's also about how we take it, how we label things. And a lot of times what happens is that if we're labeling things and taking them in an unhealthy way, it can really hurt us. If you think about going back to her situation, how sweet her relationship is and how loving it is. And there's no real rejection, but there's hurt there. And that's the point that I really want to emphasize, is that sometimes as we take information in or we have an experience, we can take it in and it can be devastating and painful when it really doesn't need to be. And so we can learn to take in information in a way that is more healthy. And so that's the insight that I want to bring in. Now, the reason that I want to bring that in is this, is that I'm noticing more and more and more how there are certain labels in psychology that are coming up. Like, I'll use, for example, a simple example, the narcissist or abusive. What's happening is that a lot of people are adding more and more and more labels to it. So in other words, using this same scenario of rejection, let's say, for example, when I use the example of the guy who asked a woman out and she said no, if one person says, oh, well, she's just not interested, that's one way to take it. If the other situation, he feels like he was rejected, that's another way to take it. Now, nobody wants to feel rejected, but not interested. Okay, well, she's not interested. Not that big of a deal. Oh, I was rejected. It's like taking it personally in a more painful way. So my point is that a lot of times you may have noticed there's more and more labels showing up around psychology of wounding or getting more and more labels. And what's happening, and what I'm seeing a lot of, is I'm seeing people who are actually ending up reinforcing the wound and keeping themselves more stuck. And you may remember on a past episode where I worked with a volunteer who had a certain relationship in the past. And basically, a long story short, she added the label of abusive to a past relationship, and it impacted her health and kept her from healing herself. And so my point is from this is that we have to be careful about labels, and we have to be careful about the way that we assimilate and take in information, and make sure that we're doing so in a way that is healthy. Because all the time I'll see people who are, even like, if you think about our beautiful volunteer, loving being in a wonderful relationship, wonderful marriage, very loved, and yet this information comes in and it becomes painful, that it's affecting her at a deeper level. And so ultimately, that's what we really want to think about, is exactly that, making sure that you're taking in information in a healthy way. And if not, just simply reprogramming your mind to do so. All right, so, and somebody came to say hello. All right, so that said, it has been such a pleasure connecting with you. Those are the insights from today. And I want to ask you, as always, please do take just a quick moment to hit the share button on this episode. Share it with somebody you love, somebody you care about, or somebody you don't even know, because the more that every single person is happy and healthy and loved and loving, the better this world is for all of us. And so please do make a point to hit the share button, and please do make a point to have a most wonderful, fantastic rest of your day. And so you feel loved and loving and taking that in. All right. It has been such a pleasure. I look forward to connecting with you on the next episode. We'll see you there.